Hey everyone, we're back again. Paul, I think you've made some good progress today. I've done a little bit on the art side as well. It's probably 2 hours since the last live stream. And we've also got Thomas, special guest. Aaron's just jumping into it as well. He's been tied up with Sunday work, which should be illegal, but he's coping pretty well. Paul, you're actually on mute.
And so is John. I'll just quickly introduce Tom. So Tom and I have known each other for like forever, like 20 plus years or something. His older brother is a really good mate of mine, and Tom, like, whilst being like a good programmer as well, he's like really into music. So when we were talking about building out our own assets and sounds and music, I thought Tom might be interested in joining the team as well. So Tom's joining us. He lives in the US. Maybe Tom, just introduce yourself, say hello.
Hey, my name is Thomas. I've been doing music work or hobbyist music work for probably, almost over 15 years now, probably closer to 17 years. Mostly kind of like fast-paced electronic music. If you know the genre, it's called UK hardcore or happy hardcore. But I do kind of make different things. I don't know, like just different kinds of electronic music. For this project in specific, I tried making a little bit of stuff that I can maybe show you later, taking some kind of like Western theme, because I knew that we were going to do like the Western style Halloween Harry stuff. So yeah, maybe I can show you that later.
Yeah,
that'd be awesome.
Space Western, maybe. Like, I don't know how you bring space into that, but that could be something to experiment with as well. So it can be electro meets Western.
Well, actually, maybe what I've got is going to be perfect for it then. Perfect,
awesome. Because we've got to connect back to the original theme, right? Like, we were thinking originally this morning, let's make it the aliens. There's an equivalent of Halloween Harry, and he's trying to help the aliens. And then we kind of got, I think, too sidetracked. So we thought, let's keep to the core mechanics, core ideas, core music, but then bring in like this Wild West type setting, and then have some time travel mechanics alongside that.
Yeah. So like when we were sort of playing around earlier, we thought we had some sort of like, we're looking at some ways to just get our character like jumping around the screen, like an initial really base level setup of the app, and basically like a directory structure that we might go ahead and work with. And so Matt sort of set this up, but I went ahead and like purged that all and trimmed it all back to make it really, really basic. And so I thought we'll just go through this, and then I pushed that up to the repo, which we'll paste a link into that. And Aaron pulled that down and made some further enhancements from his learning that he's done on top of that to like just make it a little bit more useful and handy to work with. So basically, like if this was the main file, I'll skim really quickly. We've got, our game running to determine whether or not the loop is happening, our frames per second, the clock, set the title, set the width and the height, create like a game character. And so part of this that we thought was break these characters and I guess like all the different pieces that are going to come up to be able to store those in different folders and different files, so we don't end up with a file with like hundreds and hundreds of lines of code. A couple of like globals, effectively saying like player move left, right, and the player actions. I broke out the player actions into our enums so that we can not have to reference indexes or numbers, so it's a little bit more clear when we're moving those through. And for the very, very first loop, this game, and I'll demonstrate it in a second, does nothing but plot a brown background and has the character. that enables that character, which is nothing more than a box. So if we were to look at the sprites I made for the character, if we sort of load that, it's just nothing. Like effectively, like what we would use for the animations, but just to demonstrate what's happening. If we've got one that's jump, you can see that's jump. And if I've got run, that would be like the run 0 and run 1's animations or sprites that we would be going to use. So those images, if, the legs might be moving.
So would we, instead of doing the individual sprites though, we would do like what Matt was talking about the other day, where we'd use a sprite sheet. So it'd be the same thing, but we'd just import one sprite sheet, and then the coordinates of which sprite you're looking at in the sprite sheet would change instead of changing the sprite that's loaded in. Is that where we would go with that?
Well, the template here, and I'll show how that does that, is it basically to load those in. It is in, I think it's in the character, the game character.
Yeah,
so
game character.
So the way that works is it says we've got these like animation types that'll be for that specific character, and then for each one of those types, loop through them, and by convention, those types map up to like these folders under the player, and then for each list of files under these types, like for idle, for example, it knows by convention that they index start at 0 and for each file loop through and use those as the frames. So we sort of chat backwards and forwards. I think you weren't there, Matt, and we said rather than having a sprite sheet, we could just have individual PNGs.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. So this is sort of how it's dynamically loading in for the animation types, and then for each animation type, it's got a number of different frames. So like this is the piece of code that's doing that.
It would run faster if it was one sprite sheet, and we had like every 16 pixels represents another picture, and we broke it up that way. But in terms of like a hackathon and easiness, like for a game jam, we can keep it simpler. Yeah.
If we have time later in the week, maybe we can look at enhancing that, and instead of having the array of idle, run, jump, you'd have a dictionary of idle, run, jump, which would have the array, which would have the pixel position in the sprite sheet. So it'd still be the same logic, but you're just pulling out where in the sprite sheet it pulls in from instead of loading an individual image load every time. But let's look at this.
Yeah, we can refactor that and have a look at that later. So basically this is saying if the player is alive and determine the state of the player and what specifically happens, go ahead and perform a specific action on that player, which like will animate or change the frames. So like as every tick of the game, like we can iterate around what is happening or what is the change to update the state. And otherwise for like each event, we'll go ahead and like just set up like the event dispatches to determine whether or not you've pressed or not pressed the key. Like put your finger on the key or not put your finger on the key. And that will do something with that player, as well as some basic, there's some gravity on that player as well. So if we were to go Python main, we can see here like there's really nothing other than like a ground and a brown background. And the idle animation is just sitting there. So when Matt said earlier about the character might be standing there, but like sort of bobbing, giving the effect that like they might be alive, these are the 3 frames that will loop through when you've got that idle animation. If you were to jump, like you can see it switches across to the jump animation. If you move like one way or the other, you can see like the left will just flip the reverse. So that's already been taken care of as well. So we only need to run animation one way. The inverse of that will make it look like it's running the other way. So you can see it's like, that's what's happening there. So this is a really like basic overview of what I did so far and set up, which we sort of took something that we'd started with a little bit earlier and gutted it all and started from scratch. So then I went and pushed that up, and we were talking about earlier about like a little bit of a blog. I went ahead and set up a blog, which I'll post in later, that people can go and reference some of the pieces, what we've done. And we might have like a point in time to a commit hash in our GitHub repo as well. I'll give it to Aaron, who'll go through some of the refactor that he did and some of those learnings.
So I may have a couple of issues with my, I just saw that my Wi-Fi went from 5 gigahertz to 2.4 gigahertz. So it might slow down in a few seconds or space out. But basically what I did is I just pulled from what Paul has already committed, and I just wanted to get into some more, less around the game mechanics and more around sort of coding practices and standards. So if you remember from, did we look at your main Pi, Paul? On Paul's main module, he had all of his global variables. But essentially, in terms of moving from a lot of the tutorials that I've been looking at for Python, a lot of the tutorials for sort of building games with PyGame are very much single module, main.py, and then everything in the project. Everything in the module. That's going to get really unruly very quickly, especially for a game like this where we need to break it into like an opening screen, a credit screen, the actual games, all of the stages, all of the sprites. Paul's just done the character, like the basics for the mechanics of the character. We're going to have to add enemies, so other non-player characters, that sort of stuff. It's going to get really big. So one way of sort of managing that from an object-oriented point of view is abstracting away the mechanics down to its smallest components, but then also using some of the features of Python in terms of how imports are managed and everything like that. We can actually start to pull away a lot of the extra level global variables or constants that will be used across other classes and other modules from within the game loop. So all I did so far is basically just set up a globals.py and put that into the game folder. So the game package will now contain the character at the moment, globals, enums being global as well, but different, like a structure for being able to pull out specific states. Whereas with the globals, these are things that we want to be able to access across any of our classes or any of our modules across the entire game. So instead of having them all in the main, all we do is basically drop them out into the globals module, and then we're actually importing from the game globals. We want to import all. So instead of just importing a specific module or a specific class from a module, we want to import all, which means we can now access. So we're actually setting up gravity here. Was another one. We're setting up the screen, so getting the screen width. This one's another good point. A lot of the tutorials that I've been looking at for PyGame actually start by setting up the view screen by setting up a variable or a tuple of screen width, screen width and screen height, and then using that screen width and screen height to then feed into the actual set mode where you're actually setting the view screen. What I found a better approach to doing that is actually using the PyGame rect, because with the rect, so a rectangle comes with the properties for actually calculating the width, calculating the height. It gives you the X and Y for the 0, 0 point. It gives you the top and bottom, which is the Y 0 and Y, whatever the actual Y0 plus the height is. It gives you the left and right. So left will be X0, and then X plus width will give you the right. So instead of having to do all those calculations, you can use the rect to give that to you. So for actually setting up the view screen, we then do the set mode from PyGame and add screen width and screen height. And that actually gives us the actual view screen coordinates that we want for the actual size of the screen, but then we can actually go back and use them. So now when we're actually setting up other things, like when we start to look at collisions with the actual side of the wall or the top and the bottom, we don't actually have to do all the calculations for it now. We can just do screen dot left. So if at the moment, we're drawing a line up from the screen width and out 300 pixels, we could essentially say, where would you line, if I've got that right? So this is a tuple, right? We want to say screen dot right. So this will draw that line from, is this right? Is this what you were trying to do here, Paul? It was from the left to the right of the screen. So screen width would have been the X. I think I might have got it mixed up here. It's the other way around.
I didn't even get that far.
Okay. Anyway, so that gives you the what I'm trying to achieve in terms of you've got the global variable. So we'll put this back to width so that it doesn't screw up what you were trying to do. If we were looking at if we wanted to draw a line from, say, like very left hand to the very right hand side, instead of having to work out 0 plus width, all we have to do is say left. Left will give you the X0 coordinate. And then to go all the way to the other end, all we have to say is screen.right, and that'll give you the X coordinate for the very end, X0 plus width. Done. So then all of those calculations are worked out for us. Let's go back to what you had. And then the only other thing that I've done on top of that, and this is more personal preference, I've come from other languages. I do see that it's very common in Python where people are using underscores to create function names and variable names. I'm very anti-underscore. It gives me PTSD from working in different environments.
I think that's like pretty much a Python thing. Like, I see a lot of method naming in Python with an underscore in it.
I've noticed that across a lot of the tutorials. Again, it's personal preference. I like to use Pascal case, or camel case, depending if you're capitalizing the first one. For me, it would be capitalized for a global. And in some states, some places you can use the all caps for like a constant. That's a personal preference, purely, but it just makes it for me a bit more readable. Obviously, I'm not a seasoned Python programmer, so for people who have been doing it for a long time, it probably makes more sense to use your underscores and follow along the practices that you've learned. But now, all I'm trying to do is basically break out the code that Paul has put together and start to abstract it away from the main timeline. So then I only wanted to just do the globals at this stage to show so that it's not a big drastic change, but then starting to move a lot of the player interaction, a lot of the actual setup of the game away from being inside the game loop and into specific modules and classes to manage specific things. So sticking with solid programming with single responsibility, every module or every function or method within a class would only have one role to play. And then we can actually break it down into smaller modules and start to then build it up through abstraction. So yeah, that was the main thing that I've done in the last half an hour since coming off my customer call and starting to jump into the code. And Matt's back, but you're on mute.
I am. I don't know if we've got too many people outside of Australia watching the stream, but I've got sausage rolls and I've got meat pie. So I've just heated up my lunch, but my sister actually dropped off fresh sausage rolls, which is pretty awesome.
They're pretty good.
The wife's saying they're pretty good in the background. So what I might do is I'll get I'll turn my camera around. Actually, I'll show you guys the sausage rolls. I'm sure you don't want to see them, but I'm going to do it anyway, just because. You don't need to prep the food. Just because I've also got the Wacom out as well. So I've been using this to draw. I just got this set up on the Windows PC. So I thought that would make the artwork a bit simpler to get set up. So because we had problems with Photoshop beforehand, I did a 30-minute video on how to use ASC Sprite. So I went through, I learned the basics of the tool. It's pretty cool, actually. So I think I've got the hang of it now. So you got your preview window. You've got your pencil for drawing. You can fill if you want to with different colors. I'll go back on that because I don't want that there. So if I wanted to fill the body of each frame, right, I can do that. So I could go fill that in. And I haven't actually squared that off with the pencil tool. So if I just go here and I square it off, I should now be able to fill that one as well. But I might need to come back and snatch that color. So yeah, there we go. So basically you could just create new layers. So there's a shortcut button to do that. And so basically what I have is I have 3 layers. I've got the white background, which I'd remove to transparent if I wanted to export it. I've got these legs. And I was just hacking around, like none of this animation is supposed to look really good, right? This is just me working out how to break up the character's body into different components so I can kind of animate things separately. And I've got the body on top. So if I hit play on that, you can see I've got a really bad stick character moving. So that was pretty cool to learn. So half-hour video and then playing half an hour. I think I've got the hang of it. I can do our character animations now. I haven't picked up the character that we had beforehand. But the other thing that I've been working on is like what do the art tiles look like? So if we're going to make 4 levels, like we're going to have themes. So I was like, what happens if one of the levels is nighttime Western? And so I'll have the stars in the backgrounds, and there might be like little settlements in the corner, lots of cactuses. So I'm going to draw that. We might use this in the main menu, is what I'm thinking. So A, it kind of sets the theme for how we make the tiles, but B, we can use it in the main menu to select each of the different levels too. So I kind of started there, and once we kind of agree on like the art looks good, I'll start to make tiles that we can bring into Tiled for it. And of course, I've got to go through and do all the character animations now. I've gotten the hang of ASC Sprite for character animation. So that's pretty much my progress. Yeah.
For the environment one, are you thinking of doing parallax?
Yeah. So the background would be parallax. So it would be maybe an extension to this that was a bit longer that we could scroll through as we walk through the platformer. But then we'll actually have like block tiles to represent the land and the shops and all of that, like in the foreground, not the backgrounds. But this piece here was just to set the scene. So I'm like, okay, it looks good. I think a nighttime scene's good for a Western. I wanted to do a really yellowy. What's that?
Did you draw that?
Yeah, I drew that. Yeah. So I'll do like a really yellowy, orangey, huey, like sun background as well with like the canyons, and we'll see how that goes. And I might have a bit more green and foliage in that one. That could be another type of level that we have. The third one that I wanted to do was like that arid desert, like just eagles in the background, ravens or whatever they are in the US. Like you've got the tumbleweed as well. And that was kind of going to be like an abandoned town or something like that. I thought could be quite cool. So I'll kind of make these 4 art scenes, and then we'll pick the one to create the tiles for, and then we'll work towards that for the week, and then I'll do the character animations and define how our baddies look, etc. So somehow I got to make the aliens look like they've turned up, right? But then they've managed to get some kind of supplies, some kind of clothing to try and fit in and trick the locals. So we might see some
aliens wearing
like boots.
Aliens with cowboy boots and hats,
or the nice hats. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, or a poncho as well, maybe. Yeah. So that's going to be really fun as well. So the code side looks like it's coming along well, and I'll be very busy with the art over the coming days, I reckon. So that's pretty much it for my side. Did we want to cover anything else in the stream, or shall we just keep getting back into it?
Tom's got some sample music.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that would be great.
If you share your screen, Tom, we'll put it up on the stage. And I think we were chatting in the backgrounds to each other. I think you can share audio into the stream. We haven't tried this before, but we'll see how that goes.
Yep.
You there, Tom, or did you mute yourself? Because you're on mute.
Sorry, I'm trying to go through the screen share stuff so I can get it to share audio.
Yeah, that's okay. So yeah, we're making good progress. We've only been at it for 2 hours. We have a lot of the day left anyway. So I reckon by tonight we'll be looking even better.
Do you want to start breaking down maybe, because like Paul, you've done an awesome job at sort of putting together the character and how it's going to manage the sprites. We've got some basic gravity. Do you want to start breaking down maybe, because Matt's got something to do, but you and me, Paul, we need to break down sort of what we're going to do separately so that we're not going to be doing the same thing.
Yeah, I think we kind of, even if we just get maybe the roughest tile we could get and just repeat that tile and not lay it out, so that we can set something that we can make things jump over. Because I've never done it before. I've never built a game. I've never thought out how we should go ahead and get into it. Maybe we'll just make it to be able to shoot. Maybe make an enemy and shoot the enemy or something. That might be the first thing to tackle.
So maybe that, because that still revolves around the character stuff. So maybe do you want to continue with that, and then maybe I'll start working from the actual game engine point of view. So actually putting together, we'll need to have like a start screen. So new game, I don't know if we want to do a save and load states, jumping into the game loop when then we'll have to have the level what we call it dictionary, so that we know what level we're on, what's the sprites that we're loading, all that sort of stuff. The end state, so when we lose or win, I can start breaking it down into that. And then that way you can continue the interaction side of things for the character, and then maybe start working on some of the AI, some of the non-character players. And then let's get back together and start stitching it together.
Yeah, all right. Tom, how are you going with getting that sharing up? Did you have to leave and come back to grant permissions or something?
No, it doesn't allow me to share audio for anything outside of Chrome. So I can load the MP3 that I've rented out into Chrome and then just share the MP3 as a tab. So I can't show it in FL Studio, like actually live being played from the actual DAW app, but I can at least show the audio as if it's playing as an MP3 through a Chrome tab.
You could play it from your speaker and just put your microphone up to your speaker. And
I think what he means is like Chrome will share the audio, right? So you can play us the audio so we can listen to it. And then we can go back to the studio and you can tell us how you made it. Maybe we'll just do it that way, Tom.
Sure.
Yeah, cool. All right, how about you show us it first, then we'll listen to it.
Sure. Okay. So let me know when you guys can see this.
Yeah, it's just popped up now. Yep.
Okay. So what I have is I've got two separate sections here. This is kind of more of an intro kind of section. The drum section, this is like a kick drum and a snare drum. And I've got this little guitar line. It's kind of like a Western guitar, as well as some sort of more Western kind of sound effects. Then it kind of moves into drum and bass kind of section with like what's called like a neurofunk bass line. So it's really, it kind of sounds a little bit like dubstep, but more kind of drum and bass, I guess. So we've got sweep effects here, sort of down sweep here and an up sweep here. That's sort of transitions into this next kind of section here. I got like the rattlesnake kind of sample. You'll definitely hear it when I can play it. So
did you just start this fresh just recently? Is this something brand new?
Yeah, a couple hours ago.
Nice,
awesome. All right, maybe like share Chrome so we can hear it, and then that might be something that you can talk us through about what you did on here as well.
Sure. So I have to stop sharing, and then. Okay, so hopefully this works. Can you see this at least?
Yep, let's go.
That's it.
That's awesome.
That's really good. That's really good.
I think that inspires some of the art coming along and maybe the gameplay.
Man, I just had visualizing, Western Harry running around on the countryside, shooting aliens. It says it all in the music.
I think it's just dictated that we need a shotgun in the game.
I think so.
Like a heavy, like beefy shotgun, like one of those like double barrel, like half sawn off maybe. Who knows? Not American, so I don't know my guns too well, but something that packs a wallop.
Yeah, I like it. It's really nice, Tom.
Awesome.
Really good. Like right on theme.
It's very cool.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll probably finish up the stream here. and we'll catch up with you guys maybe sometime later tonight. We'll have a follow-up. We'll see how we'll go. I posted a link to the blog that we might put up a couple of our decision points, such as just some of the screenshots of the mind map, the links back to what we're doing and some of the thought processes. It's not going to be a rich blog, but it'll sort of be a note-taking scribe.
Give me access as well, Paul. Walk me through it afterwards, and I might put some images up as I go as well. So it might be just a nicer, more up-to-date timeline of where we're at versus coming on every couple of hours in the stream.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, all right. We'll take care, everybody, and we'll see you all sometime later.
Done. Excellent. Thanks, everyone. Catch ya.